Welcome back, everyone. I don't believe it, but we actually have a little bit of sun this morning. However, rain is in the forecast for later today, so let's just see how much we can get done. It's that time again to work on my 1956 VW Chop Top Beetle, and this car is just gorgeous. And a lot of folks have sure been chomping at the bit asking about the engine. And nobody wants to see it moving under its own power more than me. We've actually covered the engine stuff in a lot of previous videos, and everything should be ready to go if I can find it all. Yep, it should be ready to just bolt together. But where the hell is my alternator? Well, I don't know. But I guess it's a good thing that it goes on last. I have seen it here in the garage someplace, but I'm just not sure where. And when it turns up, we'll put it on. Well, while we are assembling this engine, we got a bit of time to figure that out, so let's go to putting the engine up on a stand and make it easier for a big body like me to work on without a sore back. This is one of the methods I've used to get an engine up on the stand. Using leverage, it's actually quite easy to raise it up in one motion, and it saves you from having to wait on a friend of yours to show up that probably won't be all too helpful anyway. Well, I noticed while it was up that the right side of the engine, but only the right side of the engine, was all gunky underneath. This is consistent with finding a little oil spot under the right side of the engine back when I was running it. So I might as well give it a proper cleaning and find the source of the leak before continuing. Then I'll just rinse it and let it dry.
One hour later.
Well, I'm kind of glad I put this thing up on a stand before I decided to put this thing in the car, because I noticed, and you guys can see it, this J-tube is touching the cylinder head. That is a big no-no. You don't need the exhaust putting heat back into that head. There needs to be about a finger's distance of space between the two, and that's clearly not it. So what I think I can do is I can probably bend the radius of this out a little bit and bring that pipe out. And then what I'll do is I'll put a stronger bend in here to bring it back to where it needs to go, so that way it can go back into the coupling. Anyway, that's where I'm at over here, and I do remember when I assembled this, I had a little trouble putting it together, and that's probably why. Now, if you do recall a couple years ago, I had to shorten this pipe, because the radius was way over here somewhere, and it didn't clear the CAFR bar that I had on there, so some of the rear struts and stuff were in the way. So what I had to do was just shorten the radius of this out. Anyway, it's not a big deal. This is all stuff that can be fixed. So I'm going to start taking this apart, making some adjustments, and well, let's see what we got. Okay. Go, that's not too bad. Now I gotta put a little block of wood or something in here and then bend the rest of the pipe back up so that way this radius doesn't change. I think a piece of angle iron will actually do the trick. Put that in there just like that, and you can see it's already starting to bend, because guess who tested this method out before I started running the camera? Alright. Now we want to make sure that we push this in, but not too far, because we want the bend to happen at the end. Okay, probably right about there. Hey you guys, here comes the fun part. Muscle this thing. Boy, I got no leverage on it. Alright, that looks good. We got a finger's width in the back, and up front we have, well, a little more than that. Almost a finger and a quarter. I think that should be good, as long as the header doesn't pull this back too far, which is what we're about to find out. Here goes our header. See if I can move this camera out the way. Alright. Okay, it didn't move too much. Perfect. We're gonna go with that. That looks good. That looks really good. Now this area up in here actually really doesn't need clamps. J-tubes actually, because the end of them is tapered, they press into each other. So when you put this together, it actually will smash together. Does it form any kind of leak? Yeah, I guess it could, but That's it, it's on there now. Because of the tighter turning radius that's on here also, the nut that goes in this side is practically impossible to get on or off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten the stud. I'm going to take about a 1/4 inch off of it. So I put the pipe on wrong on purpose, just so I could go ahead and cut it in here just like that. Now that's how we're going to handle it. Here we go. That should make my life a whole lot easier here. Ooh, that nut is hot. Okay. Now, when we put this on, yes, now I can put the nut on here just like that without having to wiggle the pipe in and, you know, yeah, it's less fiddly than it was. I'm happier with that. So if I'm happy, that means the YouTube algorithm will be happy, right guys? Yeah, it's so much easier now. I can actually turn the nut by hand before it would hit the exhaust pipe, and the only option you had was to use a wrench on it. Well, the threads are just a little boogered, of course, because I just sawed off a section of them, but to get this thing snugged up, it should be just fine. There we go. Check this side. That side can be a little tighter. Tight. Very nice. Me like it. Just wanted to show you another angle of that. You see how tight that nut is against that pipe. So there was just no way to get the nut on that stud without pulling the pipe out. And yeah, anyway, that solved a lot of problems. Now when I cleaned the engine, the right side of it was extremely gummy and just gunked up with oil, whereas the left side was clean. And I discovered the leak, which appears to be in cylinder number 2 on the exhaust pushrod tube on the case block side, and it's not the seal, it's actually the bellows in the tube. It's leaking around that. So I guess one of two things has to happen. I either have to replace that tube by just simply ripping it out of there and then putting in one of the new telescopic ones, or pull the head and properly put a OEM tube on there. But anyway, I'm in a little bit of a situation here because I don't think I have the part to do it. I'm going to dig around and see if I've got one. If I can find one, we'll put this sucker back together. It shouldn't be too big of a deal. Otherwise, I may have some telescopic ones around, but they're known to be leakers, so we probably won't use that. But anyway, that's why this side of this engine is all gummy. It was that. Everything else over here is pretty dry. I don't see any leakages. When I stand the engine upright, even the valve cover wasn't leaking, and I replaced the gasket on it because I thought it was, and no, I don't think that's where the oil was coming from. I think it was from there the whole while. Turned out that was the culprit, and the reason why it's making a mess on my driveway. So we'll get that fixed. We got the engine standing up with the left side facing down, and it's been sitting this way for about an hour, and I don't see any leakages out of any of the pushrod tubes at all, or from the valve cover underneath there, also all dry. No puddles on the ground. So I'm going to say that this side is sealed up and is fine, so I'm not going to mess with that side at all. I can see that over here on the right side, these are a little banged up. So something happened under here, I don't know what. But as far as I know, this engine was like new. It only had, I don't know, she said maybe 100 miles or something on it. And she wasn't trying to sell me on that. This was the previous owner of the car that told me that like 6 owners ago or so, that told me it was running, but you know, it had electrical problems and it just had sat for a long time, so she never messed with it. Fast forward, it got sold like 6 times to a bunch of different people, and the car just was in exactly the same state that she said it was in. So I believe her. I believe her, really I do. And it sounded great when it was running, but the main problem I had was I had oil leaks on the right hand side. So I guess the oil would drip off the tubes, and that's where I was getting a mess. And of course this whole side of the case was just nasty. being that it's air cooled, there's always a lot of turbulence that comes under here. So any oil that drips off when the sled plates are on here just gets thrown all over the place. And it gets thrown backwards, it gets thrown downwards, it splashes up into the cooling cylinder or cooling fins, and it makes a mess out of everything. Anyway, at least I know what I need to do next. I'm letting it sit up this way. I want the head to drain out before I start to pull any of that stuff apart. I guess the exhaust header's got to come back off again. That's Volkswagens for you guys. Yeah, always something with these things. Alright, after doing some digging around, I managed to find a tube, and I think it's new. It looks like it's just been sitting around a while. It was in a bucket that was sitting outside. So, I mean, it's just a little dirty. And I found some gogies for the ends of it, too. Again, these were dirty. They were sitting in the bottom of a bucket. They had all just oily residue shit in it. But they look like they're new. They don't have any dents in them, or they don't look, deformed at all. So they should be good to go. So that'll be what I use. Although, in that same bucket, I found one of the telescopic units. And this sucker looks like it's got a good seal on it. The center seal is usually where these things leak. But I can easily put these little gogies on the end of this thing, too. And I've never used one of these, mainly just because everybody's experience says they leak, but maybe it's just because they don't set them up right. So maybe I should play with this and just see what happens. I think it'd be worth experimenting with, since it's easy to put on without tearing everything apart. And if I do end up with a leaky, then we'll just revert to this. So, what we'll do is we'll open up the bail up here, get this cover off, which is effectively greased on because I actually grease the seal the way you're supposed to. Every engine I take apart, the rockers are held in by 12mm nuts. These are 13s. I don't know why. I don't care. It was a little bit of a surprise though, because I went and grabbed a 12mm socket and it wasn't what it was. Alright, out of here should come this push rod. That's cylinder number 1. I think I might have said cylinder 2 earlier. It is the exhaust side though, this one right under here. Is the nuts and the washers for, whoops, one of them just fell down in the engine. There's a little void that's over here. Oh great, everything's just making a damn mess. Let's see if I can get my finger in there and pull it out. Probably not. Fingers are too big. Makes me popular with the ladies, but it doesn't do anything good for engines. There it is. Okay, I'm gonna stick these washers and the nuts right onto this convenient stud that's sticking out of this case. Look at that. Now they're not going anywhere. Okay. Now the trick here is to destroy this thing. Yeah, you heard me right. Destroy this thing. Alright, so here we go. Just freaking wreck it. Pull it right out. There it is. Rubber gogie stuck in the head, which is usually the case. See if I can get it out of there. They glue themselves in pretty well from the heat. There it is. Boop, one rubber gogie. Now let's see if we can see where the crack was in this thing. I think it was on this side here. It was in the bellows where it was leaking. Boy, these things are thin. I contemplated just hitting it with the welder real quick, but I didn't think that I could do it without burning through. Well, I don't see the hole. It just must be a teeny tiny little pinhole. Well, there's a flat spot right here. Oh, you know what? There it is. That is it. There's a flat spot right here on the side. It looks like somebody hit it with a grinder or something. Right there, and there's a little pinhole. Yeah, it looks like somebody just hit it with a grinder. Just like that. And the rest of it looks pretty good. Yeah, that's the only spot that I see. Weird. Alright, there it is. Replacey. Junko! No! It's crap! Okay. Clean out the spot where the seals go. Make sure there's no schmegma in there. Nobody likes schmegma, I'm just saying. Nobody wants any smeg. Alright, good. Here's the bullshit pushrod tube. I go one end in here and the other end in there. It looks like I need to get a wrench on there and shrink them down. Boy, oh boy, it really feels dirty using these. I read for years you shouldn't use them because they leak. And here I am, using them. But you know, we're going to see if it truly leaks. I want to see it firsthand. And it's a shortcut, and hell, if there's a problem, I know what to do to replace it, right guys? This looks good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of axle grease on these seals, so that way as I tighten this thing, the friction doesn't chew it up. And I'm also going to put a little bit of grease on these too. I don't think they need that, but I'm going to do it anyway. A lot of these little Volkswagen seals just like that. Somebody's probably screaming right now, "Oh my God, Duckman, are you insane?" I might be, but you know, I've never had a leak. I don't think the Volkswagen manual calls for this, but it does on the valve covers. Those cork gaskets that go in there. And this will also allow me to get them seated, because once it's in place, you can actually turn it, and that will give it a better seal. Alright, well, here we go. Boy, oh boy. I still feel like I'm making a mistake. Well, you know what's the worst could happen? It still leaks, and then I have to put it back together, or take it back apart and do it the right way. I'm sure somebody's going to leave me a hateful comment, though, for doing this, even though I've already explained myself, but you know the way it goes. That's the internet for you. Everybody is smarter than you are. But I'm actually using these for what they're designed for. And that's for fixing a damaged pushrod tube. To hold you over until the next time you do a rebuild. I really can't wait to see if these leak. Really can't wait to see. Alright. It's almost in. I'm gonna put a wrench on that. My fingers are just a little slippery. Well, one thing's for sure. They are perfectly straight. Now, I wonder if the reason why these leak is because people don't tighten them enough. Or maybe it's because they tightened them too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this, because I don't have a manual to this, and I'm going to turn it just until it feels like the seal is squishing. I think that's what I'm starting to feel right now. No, maybe not. I think it's just the thread was a little boogered. Let's see, how tight are they? I can still turn them. My fingers are greasy right now from the axle grease I put on everything. Turn this nut down. Yeah, these didn't come with instructions, of course, so I'm just winging it here. If this is the only problem I end up finding on this engine, I'm going to be very, very happy. I would have designed those seals a little differently. Instead of using that little rubber O-ring, I would have actually made a bigger flange on it, and I would have put one of the Volkswagen rubber gogies in there instead. I think we're good, but I might have done it bad. I don't know. Because this seal is close to the head, so this is the hottest spot versus being down here where it'll be cooler. So it might, in my mind, have more of a tendency to fail if it was closer to the heat versus to where it would be less hot. I don't know. I'm thinking about that. You know what? I may just reverse that. Although to me, because this tube drains into the other one, that makes more sense to me that when the head empties out when you park the car, it'll be less likely to leak because it's draining into a tube, because these are actually lower on this end than this end when the engine is sitting level. Yeah, you know, I kind of like my reasoning. And, alright, the big question is, alright, I checked some of the instructions online, and JBugs, as well as a few others, were showing that this section would be on the outer side. So, I'm going to leave it as is. I don't think I'm going to tear that apart, but the big question is, once I put this back together, did I replace an oil leak with another oil leak? Well, we're about to find out. Let's put our rockers back together up on top up here and see where we end up at. Okay, put that right back in there. There we go, make sure all them push rods go back in their cups. All them nuts I screwed down on the bottom here. One of them I've already dropped. Here's our washers, put them on first. Here's our nuts. Feel like I'm tuning in Tokyo. Twisty, twisty, twisty. Alright, I'm gonna snug that up. I'm not gonna go too nuts on this. The reason why I'm doing that is because I got a feeling I'm gonna be retorquing everything or taking it all apart. So what I'm gonna do is we're just gonna do a quick reassembly, put the cover back on and flip the engine back over the other way. And then we'll let it sit. And when it sits for a few hours, with this side facing down, we're gonna see if we get any new oil leaks out of any of the places where it was leaking from before, or anything that might be new that I may have caused in the process. Alright, here we go. The ground is clean underneath. Let's flip this engine back on over so gravity brings all the oil to the other end. There's one of the exhaust nuts I lost earlier. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's about 20 minutes later. I don't see any oil leaks coming out of there, but we're just gonna let it keep on sitting. And I'm gonna start cleaning up out here, getting ready to turn in for the day. And if it's still dry by the time I'm done, I'm gonna say that we're going with that as a good temporary repair. That'll hold me over. But, meanwhile, you know the drill, you guys. Licky, likey, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to pluck the dingle bellies to get updates every time I upload a video. Check out duckshit.net for all my different social media links. Make sure you check out B's stuff, which is also up there just the same. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time. I appreciate it. Well, I don't friggin' believe it. I guess there's no excuse for me not to cut the lawn now, huh?
When you've only got 5 minutes to cut your lawn between rain showers and you need to do something to stop your HOA from complaining, I bring to you Duckman's Quickie Lawn Style number 181, the Double Reverse Mohawk! Trust me, try one for yourself and you'll be the talk of the entire neighborhood!
I just got done cutting the lawn. I just got done cutting the lawn. Incredible. Just incredible. It just, oh my god, I want to try to cut more video. I just can't. Oh my. Well, at least the lawn's cut.
The following day.
Yeah, I've got an oil pan. It's underneath Eleanor's body right now. I should have been smart enough to have just slipped it under the engine because I'm trusting it to be in the garage here with the leaky side down. See if it leaks. I don't know. Don't mind the ground right now. That was actually just when I hosed off around the garage door. A little bit of water got in around the seal. It's typical to always get just a little bit of water in that corner. So anyways, we're just going to let her sit and we'll see what happens the next time we come out here and check on this engine. If she's leaking, then we're pulling heads. And I kind of want to pull the heads anyway because I'd like to be able to measure the pistons and cylinders and see if it's truly a 1600 as expected. Who knows? Could be anything, right?